Welcome to today's explainer. If you're navigating the tech landscape right now, you've definitely felt it, right? There is a massive, seismic shift happening in enterprise AI. We're living through what industry insiders are calling the 2026 ROI winter, and it is completely reshaping how businesses operate. Today, we're going to map out exactly how we transition from the dizzying hype of those basic early chatbots to the full-blown integration of autonomous exobrains. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover, and my goal is to give you a crystal clear understanding of this brand new, intelligence-based economy. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this, because there's a glaring paradox in 2026 that we need to talk about. If AI is smarter than ever, and it is, why is it failing to actually make a profit? The technology is undeniably more capable today than at any point in human history. Yet if you listen to boardroom conversations, they've completely shifted from breathless excitement to serious, bottom-line concern. We're seeing this massive disconnect between the raw intelligence of these models and the actual, tangible profit they're generating for the enterprises deploying them. It's a fascinating contradiction, and we really need to unpack what's going on here.
And here is the dramatic data point that perfectly captures this whole crisis: 95%. According to recent 2026 studies, nearly 95% of enterprise AI pilots have completely failed to produce a measurable return on investment. I mean, just think about that for a second. For all the transformative promises, the vast majority of companies trying to plug AI into their workflows just aren't seeing it translate to the bottom line. It's an incredible bottleneck. But to really understand why so many of these enterprise pilots are failing to print money, we have to pull back and look at the macroeconomics behind the scenes. The economic tension here is just immense. On one side of the equation, we have a staggering $380 billion that was poured into AI hardware, data centers, and compute by the tech giants in 2025 alone. On the other side, well, even an industry titan like OpenAI hitting a massive $20 billion in annual revenue looks like a literal drop in the bucket compared to that spend. It's like buying a fleet of super yachts to run a local ferry service. This gap right here is exactly why enterprises are suddenly pulling back. They're realizing that building and running these models costs an absolute fortune, and simply tossing an AI at a random workflow without a disciplined strategy, it doesn't automatically equal profit.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because history actually shows us that every major AI peak is usually followed by a winter, and we are currently facing the third one. Back in 1974, the first winter was caused by a scaling failure. Symbolic logic just couldn't handle real-world complexity. Then, in 1987, the second winter hit because expert systems were way too brittle. Basically, if they encountered anything outside their strict programming, they just crashed. But 2026? It's entirely different. We aren't experiencing a technological failure at all. We're experiencing a purely economic ROI correction.
I really want to emphasize this point because it's absolutely crucial. This is not a technological freeze. AI is actually working brilliantly out there. It's actively diagnosing complex cancers. It's discovering completely new antibiotic molecules. As we speak, it's writing 40% of the world's software code. The technology itself is, without a doubt, an overwhelming human achievement. What's failing are the undisciplined business models wrapped around it. The enterprise market is simply correcting itself. It's demanding strict value over blind hype. To understand how we actually get to that disciplined value creation, we have to look at the technological pivot that pulled us out of the early 2020s. For years, critics dismissed AI as nothing more than a stochastic parrot. You remember that term, right? It was a system that merely predicted the next word based on statistics. It was sort of like a really fast typist who doesn't actually speak the language they're typing. Back then, we were completely obsessed with inference time speed, basically how fast the AI could generate a response. But to generate real enterprise value, we had to essentially kill the parrot and shift our entire focus from speed to inference time compute.
And that brings us to the deepthink paradigm of 2025. This was a total game changer. Instead of instantly spitting out a predicted word, these new reasoning models use reinforcement learning and a chain of thought process to stop and deliberate. Think of it like this. The AI checks its own logic against internal benchmarks. It actively self-corrects its mistakes behind the scenes before it ever outputs the final answer to you. It's simulating a true stream of consciousness, a deliberate, step-by-step thinking process. The results of this self-correcting reasoning, honestly, they were absolutely staggering. By late 2025, these models were reaching gold medal standards at the International Mathematical Olympiad and the International Collegiate Programming Contest. Now, these aren't just simple trivia competitions. They require multi-step, non-linear, highly creative thinking. By actually allowing the machine to deliberate and self-correct, we proved that AI could reliably beat elite human benchmarks in complex logic. No parrot could ever do that.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it marks the most significant shift in the entire history of AI, the leap from generative AI to agentic AI. Generative AI was the recent past. It wrote text, it sat politely in a text box, and it predicted words. It was a tool you talked to. But today, agentic AI acts independently. It serves as a true digital coworker that executes complex, autonomous workflows. We move from an AI that just writes to an AI that actually does.
But how exactly does an AI do things? Well, it requires a bridge, and that bridge was pioneered in late 2024. It's called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Think of MCP as the universal handshake between these new reasoning agents and our physical, digital world. Instead of being trapped inside a chat window, MCP allows the AI model to connect directly to your company's databases, external APIs, and internal software tools. In a very real sense, it finally gave the AI hands to manipulate its environment.
With those hands, the true digital coworker finally materialized. Today, you can give an agent a high-level goal, and it will autonomously go out and research the topic, write the necessary software code, run it in a sandbox to debug its own errors, and then seamlessly deploy it to a live server. It manages that entire lifecycle autonomously. You, as the human, are no longer a prompter feeding it step-by-step instructions. You're stepping up. You are a goal setter and a supervisor. Which brings us to the true tipping point of our current era, the January 2026 DeepSeek shock. Remember that massive hardware spending gap we discussed earlier with the super yachts? Well, DeepSeek R1 completely upended that math. It proved that elite-level reasoning and those agentic workflows we just talked about could be achieved using highly efficient architectures that cost roughly $6 million to train, rather than tens of billions. This was a massive geopolitical and technical earthquake. It democratized high-end intelligence literally overnight and effectively ended the brutal scale-at-any-cost era. Intelligence suddenly became highly accessible.
So the crucial point is how all of this culminates in your operating environment today. The dreams of the 1950s, those old toy logic puzzles are completely solved and surpassed. The dreaded AI winters where funding and hope just completely collapsed, those have been replaced by a much healthier, disciplined ROI correction. And our reality today is defined by multimodality and autonomous agents fully integrating into the global economy. The enterprise is officially replacing blind hype with a strict, disciplined march to top-down business value.
We have finally reached the destination of a 76-year journey. We've transitioned from the pursuit of artificial intelligence to the everyday reality of augmented intelligence. We have successfully built an Exobrain, a dedicated external layer of cognition for our society that handles the heavy lifting of data processing, deep logic, and complex synthesis. We no longer have to try and build intelligence from the bottom up. It's already here, functioning as our synthetic partner.
And that brings us to the ultimate question for you and your organizations. The hype? It's officially dead. The ROI winter has cleared out all the tourists. Now that we are firmly planted in an intelligence-based economy, and this autonomous machine is a permanent resident in our world, how will your enterprise integrate its new synthetic partner? The tools are completely ready, the economics are stabilizing, and the next move is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning out there, and I'll see you next time as we continue to decode the frontier of technology.